I love the countdown.
Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. Happy motherfucking Thursday.
Happy
Okay.
Thursday. We
Listen,
made
we made it
it.
past the hump day. We did it.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Politics But Make It Fashion. We apologize for the delay of this episode. We had some technical difficulties. Guys, we were together, okay?
We were together.
We were fabulous. We were recording in a studio together. It didn't record.
We looked so official with our little headphones and our microphones.
We did.
You know what? It's okay. It's keeping us humble. Humble beginnings.
Amen. Oh my goodness. So, to pick up where we left off last week, we had, first I want to do some updates from me.
Okay.
Guys, I went to our new governor, Josh Shapiro's inauguration.
I love that you went there.
Girl, it was freezing, but it was really, really cool. I've never seen a live inauguration before. We've normally seen them on TV and stuff. Guys, the fashion was amazing.
Everything.
I don't know if you guys know this, but I love coats. I love a good, beautiful, coat. I don't
like to wear them.
I don't like to wear them. But I love them. And there were so many good, winter coats out there, and women braving the cold with their heels, because I just know their ankles were cold, because y'all. Ooh.
And they're okay. And when they're cold and you start to take a step, it hurts too. So they were really out there suffering for the look.
Bro. So our new Lieutenant Governor, Austin Davis, is the first Black Lieutenant Governor of the state of Pennsylvania. So that is amazing. And that was very historic to be there for that. And something really cool that I was telling Chelsea about is when they were swearing in. So the governor, Josh Shapiro, he swore in on a Tree of Life Bible that was rescued after the massacre that took place at the Tree of Life Synagogue, because he's a man of Jewish faith. And he swore on that Bible, which was just very, very cool. And then he had 4 men of the cloth.
I love when you say men of the cloth.
Different sects of faith. A Monsignor, a person who was of Muslim faith. I'm not sure what their head person is called. There was a reverend.
A reverend.
Yeah, and so they all did separate prayers. And prayed for the Pennsylvania and the new governor and stuff. And then at the end, they all came together and did a prayer together, where they all kind of read a piece, and then they said prayer in unison. I just thought that's America. You know what I mean? That's why we love it here. That's why we're here, so that you can showcase everybody. And even one point he said for the people who have faith and for the people who don't believe in anything, you too, I'm here for you too.
Right.
I'm here to serve everybody, and I thought that was just something really cool. And it's something that showcased that. And I had never really seen that before. So I was like, wow, that was really neat. And I think it was, inclusive without being cringy, you know what I mean? Without being a try hard thing. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment.
Well, and I feel like the conversation, first of all, what type of person thinks of something like that? And I feel like the conversation wasn't how can we be inclusive behind that? I feel like it was probably you know what would be awesome as a man of Jewish faith,
right?
But also to include the I feel like that's probably why it wasn't cringy, because it was probably legitimately from the heart, and that's probably why it was so beautiful. People always know. These people think we don't know. We can tell. We can tell when you're trying to set up a whole thing to look a certain way. We can also tell when it's let's really just make this moment super special. And
it was.
Yeah, girl, I love that you got to go do that.
Yeah, and Jacqueline was there and stuff and everything. So now I'm feeling a little guilty because she missed school.
And stuff. Okay, you should check, because I read this thing and they were like, it has to be an excused absence, but if it's an educational trip, they'll excuse it. So ask them. Be like, it was educational. She was at the inauguration.
Well, like, because too, like when we went to the White House and
right.
we did the White House and then we did the National Children's Museum.
Yeah.
And stuff. It was very educational. Yeah, definitely.
It was like a moment in time. I feel like it should be an excused absence.
Yeah. Well, I did write her a note. I'll ask that in the note too. I'll say that.
You should.
Girl, I didn't even know that.
Girl, yeah. Inside scoop.
Thank you. Thank you. So what I wanted to say from last week, something that I've been thinking about our episode was, because we had a lot of listener feedback, guys. Thank you so much. We love that. I love that people loved our conversation about kind of like what age to talk to your children about LGBTQ plus community and issues and like sexuality. And Chelsea and I disagreed on kind of like the age of when to have the conversation with your kids. But I wanted to say that what we really did agree on, though, at the end of the day, is we have to teach our kids to love everybody and to be kind and to be respectful, and also teach them that there's other people, other sexualities out there, people marry other people, and that those conversations do need to happen at some point, and maybe we don't agree at the exact same point. But that's one of the things that I think is so great about this podcast and what me and Chelsea do, and kind of what we want to show people is that there's some things you can't agree to disagree on, like racism or homophobia or whatever, but there are little nuanced things that you can say, okay, well, we may not agree exactly on this topic, but the fundamentals of what we believe in teaching our children are the same. And that's kind of what the point is like, you can have the same kind of values and maybe see things a little bit different or go about them in a little bit of a different way.
Right. And I feel like, too, as someone who is more on the conservative, Republican, like, right side of things, I feel like sometimes, like, we talked specifically about the LGBTQ situation because I do feel like that's something that's kind of being pushed and talked about a lot. And you hear this brought up like, well, like what grade, and is it too young, and this school is doing it at kindergarten, this school is not doing it at all, this school is doing it at 5th grade. And for me, it's not even necessarily about just the age. I feel like it ends up being about the kid specifically, and then also like something I was sharing with you, like when you said to me last week, well, you have the privilege of not having to have that conversation yet. And I thought, yeah, but then like, I think of things on like, for example, my family would be considered a split home because my husband has a son from a previous relationship. So my daughter hears conversations like him saying like, well, I'm going to go to my mom's house, or like, I'm going to be here Christmas morning and at her house Christmas Eve. And she's kind of like, okay, so like we have to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm kind of like, that's not great. And the statistics for kids from split families or broken homes, however you want to put it, are not great. Like the statistics for children who are dealing with LGBTQ issues at home with their parents or personally, doesn't mean it's going to be bad, but it can. They're more prone to certain things.
Yeah.
So like, but in all of that, my mindset is like, I do not expect Maddie to go to kindergarten and her teacher to be like, well, like we're going to have this conversation about a really sad thing, like a split home. Yeah. Just like I wouldn't expect if there's one child dealing with like an LGBTQ issue at school to be like, then we have to like have this conversation for the whole entire classroom. But those are real issues. And I do believe that they do need to have a support system. There's a lot of different issues that like aren't necessarily terrible and they can end up being okay, but like they do need a support system. So it's kind of like trying to figure out what does that look like in the school system, because I don't want my daughter like, and also too, that being said, my daughter coming from a broken or like a split family unit. I don't want to say broken, but
and
like
you don't want to make it like a big deal either, because
and I
that'd be
also,
the same as like my daughter, as like the statistics for kids coming from a single parent home are
right.
terrible.
Well,
Horrible.
right. They can
And
be.
right. And so like, but at the same time, I don't know if I would need her teacher to be like, well, Jacqueline's mother's a single mother. And you
And
know,
so specifically we have to, but also too,
right.
that's another thing. Also, and I was telling you this yesterday, my neighbors, like literally right across this way, this way, this way, and this way, all split homes. Like literally. And like, that's just in my very immediate vicinity.
By the way, I've never heard that term before, and I love it.
Yeah, just like it's you know, different.
Yeah.
And we all deal with it very differently. So also too, I don't want my child getting like special attention and the whole class to have to be exposed to that if they don't have to be. But also that's something like we deal with it differently. Like I don't want her going to school and her teacher's amazing, but like what if her teacher's like, oh yeah, you know, split home. Like I don't want that. I'm dealing with that in private in a way that I know my daughter and she needs to deal with it. But on the flip side, I do think that like we shouldn't ban the fact that, you know, there are children coming in there with 2 moms and 2 dads. And what does that look like for them? And then for me, I'm like, okay, you know, like maybe we need to make sure that every school has a guidance counselor and that guidance counselor has education to all of these issues, abuse, LGBTQ issues, split home, whatever the case might be.
Because
or dealing with a parent who has
if there's one kid in the class dealing with an issue and stuff, there should be a support system for that kid. And there should, whether they're like a child of divorce or they're going through identity issues or sexuality issues, that they can talk to, that has their back and has an education, understands. And that's why you need like school guidance counselors or school social workers and stuff, because those issues are going to come up and they do need to be dealt with, and maybe not for the whole class to deal with them all at the same time, but like that kid needs somebody, you know, and needs somebody to talk to who kind of like knows what they're talking about a little bit. And the sad part is, I think why a lot of these issues are now in the whole classroom is because most schools don't have those things anymore. Like because of budget cuts and defunding education, our schools don't have school social workers or guidance counselors and nurses. So when you don't have those support systems and those outlets, and now you do have kids in the class dealing with issues, where do you think the issues have to be now handled or talked about? Now it's in the classroom. And like that really does make so much sense. And like talking to you about this really made me realize like, wow, that's why the issues, because, you know, I've wondered, and we've talked about like, why do they talk about it in the class maybe? And I'm thinking like, where else would they do that if they don't have any of those other things, you know?
Well, and like, and I think that's the thing. I think we end up hearing about this. I've actually heard about in the news recently where it's like, you know, to speak about LGBTQ issues in the classroom or not to, or like all these things. And to me, I'm like, first and foremost, it's not a school subject. So I don't think it's appropriate for the school, but ultimately it's there. It's an issue. It's there. Kids are dealing with it. And we have to figure out the best way to deal with it. But then also, too, I think we're missing the broader scope because we do still have children committing suicide at 10 years old because of bullying. For God, kids can be vicious. For God knows, their hair, whatever the case might be. So I think at the end of the day, why are we talking about pushing this versus not? At the end of the day, respect, period. No bullying tolerance, period.
Because if you have kids that are respecting other kids, it doesn't matter if you're the poor kid in class. It doesn't matter if you're the single parent kid in class, you're the gay kid in class, whoever, you're all going to be treated with respect, and there's not going to be bullying in that classroom. And that is such a huge part of it too.
Well, right. And I think that that's the thing. Like if we're raising our children to be bullies, because we are bullies, because we're nasty people, so that of course is reflecting into our children being at school, that is something that I feel like is applicable to every child in the classroom. So like, I don't care who your parents are. I don't care if you have 2 moms. I don't care if you have 1 mom. I don't care if you have a split family and 18 step parents. At the end of the day, you're coming to this classroom with respect or you're not coming. period.
Right.
And so I feel like, again, girl, we're missing the main issue. We're talking about little like symptoms of the big problem. And the big problem is bullying. And if we have this level of respect and a no tolerance policy, you know what I'm saying? Like we gotta figure it out. And no matter what, like whether you're a great parent, a not so great parent, every parent needs childcare. So like whether you're like, oh, I'm really like supportive of my kid's school, you still need your kid in school because you still have to go to work to pay $17 for chicken. So like you are going to make sure that your child is able to be in school. And like that's something that could be applicable to everybody. And I don't think that there's like an age where it's not appropriate to be like, we're not doing bullying, period. You know what I mean? Girl, good conversation.
I agree.
Facts.
Girl, are you still buying eggs or are you not buying eggs? Because like...
So you know what? It's funny because my parents live in my house. We all live together, which I think it's more of a cultural thing because I think sometimes people are like, you live with your parents. I'm like, no, I don't live with my parents. I grew up, I got married, I got a job. My parents live with me though, just like when I grew up, my grandparents lived with us. But anyway, and my dad is somebody who like, if there's not eggs or butter or bread and milk,
he is going out in a hurricane.
He's going out in a hurricane to get, but I think he's actually always the one who buys the eggs because I don't use them too often. But I do think that he's buying less and less eggs. And did you hear about the black market egg thing for people who own chickens? They're selling eggs for even higher price. I'm like, wait a minute. Just went up to $5 at the grocery store, and now you're selling eggs for $15. What's happening? Capitalism.
They're selling like organic farm raised eggs for $15
that last longer. Exactly. I'm like, it's like
because they're not washed, so you can leave them out.
Exactly.
I think okay.
So, but my dad is buying less eggs, I've noticed, because he came home and he's like, a dozen eggs cost me $5 and some change. And he was like, literally 2 months ago, it was $1.19. I'm like, jeez, it's wild. It's wild out here. It's a wild time to be alive.
Oh my gosh. It really, really is. Oh my goodness.
This is a side note, but I do want to speak to this mug that I'm drinking because it's not really my typical aesthetic with the seashells. But Maddie got this for me for Christmas, and it says "Total Mom Shell."
Oh my gosh, I love
that. I can't. So I'm drinking.
I love that.
Period.
Have you heard that? Like, it's like a meme or whatever. It says every white person has a beach themed bathroom in their house. At least like. But I will say, I was thinking about it, and I was like, I know a lot of. Especially when I was in the Navy. In the Navy, I would almost say that answer would be yes to that question because, like, everybody's house they always had one like beach thing with shells and like, oh god, it's so ugly.
That's a very interesting. I don't think I know any white people with a beach themed bathroom.
I don't think it would be like your area. It
like
definitely would people. Not. No. That is not the type of white people.
Because we live in Delco. It's probably like brass knuckles in the bathroom. You know what I mean? Just in case.
Yeah. Definitely not. Chelsea, do you print out our script for today?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You're going to have to do it because I can't switch back and forth with this. It turns my camera off.
Okay, well, girl, the next topic at hand is the Missouri House of Representatives tightens its dress code for women to the dismay of Democrats. We heard Democrats upset all over the world about this.
All right, so I don't know. I think my answer is just like my question for this is why.
Well, so Republican State Rep Ann Kelly proposed an amendment that would require women to wear jackets defined as both blazers and knit blazers. Yeah.
So they're not allowed to show their arms or wear like short sleeves. And I don't understand why. And to me, this is one of the reasons why people think Republicans don't like women, hate women, or whatever. It's like, why are you picking on women? And if you want to change the dress code, then just change everybody's dress code or just make it simple and just say business casual for everybody.
Right. So I'm neither here nor there on this topic, but one thing I did read when I was reading about this is that Ann Kelly was kind of like, because the Democrats did come back and say like, hey, this is anti-women, or like, this is not equality. And her response was kind of like, actually, I kind of did this so that it would be a little bit more equal on our side, because the men's dress code is a jacket, a tie, a button up. I forget what she called it. She said a men's shirt. So I think that's like the button up that would go
like
with the tie.
like a dress shirt,
and slacks. And she's like, for women, it was a little bit more loose, so it adds a little bit more definition. And now they are kind of equal. And she was saying, if a man walked in to the house without a tie, he'd be forget it. Like, if he walked in here without a jacket, unacceptable. So she's like, for women, it added like a little bit more, like, okay, this gives you like a, and to me, this sounds like, especially coming from a little bit of corporate America, this sounds kind of like three people were coming to work with like their cleavage showing, or like in like a tank top that was like showed the bra strap. And instead of being like, Sylvia, can you tighten up with that? Like, get out of here with that. Yeah. They were like, let's just do a broad encompassing. But then the Democrats were like, why are you focusing on the women? And
I do agree with you on that. I do. But I do think that maybe she should have said that from the beginning when this was proposed. Because like when it was proposed on the floor, she should have said, I want this to be more equal, because the men have to wear a jacket when they're in here the whole time. So now women have to wear a jacket if they're in here the whole time. Right. And that's why we want to do this. If she probably would have said that from the beginning, I think that it would have been received a lot better. But I think just because of the times and stuff, and Republicans wanting to tell women what to do, it feels like it's like, this was like an added thing on there where it's like, okay, really, is this really necessary?
But you know what? I think that the ultimate hatred for women does come from the Democratic side, because nobody hated women, in my opinion, nobody hated women more than the people that were like, you're enslaved by having to stay at home. You should be on the workforce. They're holding you back. Burn your bra and get a job. And now my husband and I are both taxed, instead of him just being taxed and me being at home with a 6-pack vacuuming every day. Like, I'd be fine with that.
Look, I don't agree with that statement that it's the Democrats, but I agree that yes, whoever
it was the Democratic Party.
Whoever decided we need to do that, okay, the women who wanted to burn their bras and stuff, I could be at home.
What was I can't think of the lady. It wasn't Farrah Fawcett, but she's still around.
Gloria Steinem?
Not Gloria Steinem. She's on a Netflix show. I can't think of her name. The Democrats
I know who you're talking about. It's
they like recruited her, and she was a big face of it, because they were like, we need to get these women in the workforce.
She's on a Netflix show about being an old lady.
Exactly. And to our dismay, Jane Fonda. This was the ultimate trickery, because at the end of the day, we still now have the subconscious requirements to keep the home as though we were a full-time mom or a homemaker.
I will say this though: are you happy that you are allowed to have a bank account, and that you're allowed to get divorced if you want to, and that you're allowed to work outside of the home if you want to? Yes, well, and you can thank them for that too.
6-pack.
You can thank them for that too.
Well, I don't know. I mean, because here's the deal.
You weren't allowed to do anything. Like, you literally, if you wanted to go on birth control, you needed your husband's permission.
That's
if you wanted to open a bank account, you needed your husband's permission. If you wanted to do there was judges there was
man down.
Oh god. Okay, back in the day, there was a woman who wanted to work on homicide cases and try homicide cases, and they told her she needed to get her husband's signature before she was allowed to change jobs. So there was a lot of stuff that the Dems and liberal people helped to make not okay. I don't think it should be a one size fits all. Like, some women want to stay home, some want to work. But I'm glad that now we have the opportunity to do those things. And I'm glad that the laws aren't the same as they were. So thank you, Jane Fonda.
But you're right. You're absolutely right. Because I don't, like, the second you're like, you had to get your husband's permission, I don't, that like doesn't even, I went on a long time ago. I went to Egypt, and we had this tour guide, and he was great, but he is definitely an Egyptian man. And the things for women over there are not the same as they are for us here. And I remember just like brawling. We were like screaming at each other, which is, I'm not saying that in pride. I'm saying that to like my ignorant American side. Cause I just, the things that he was saying, I could not swallow as an American woman. Cause like I saw him doing things that I was like, bro, you're like married and like you have a kid. You just showed me your like toddler's picture.
Yeah.
Like, what if your wife did that? And he looked at me and he's like, well, she'd be stoned. And I was like, okay, then you know what I mean? Like, it was a lot for me to swallow. And I do think because I do come from a country where I can open a bank account if I wanted to. And I do have the freedom to have a job if I wanted to. I just wish I didn't have to.
Yeah, right. Well, you can thank the libs for that. So you're welcome.
Thank you, libs. Thank you, Jane. You have great hair, by the way. Okay, speaking of libs and Democrats, Joe Biden had 2 cancerous lesions removed. We saw this from the Associated Press. The surgeons removed a cancerous lesion above the First Lady Joe Biden's right eye and one on her chest. Ooh. Yikes. Ooh. Those are scary places to have something removed.
I know. I saw the eye thing and I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, I wish her a speedy recovery.
Well, especially as somebody who's older, it's always a little bit more difficult to recover. Right. But it was a basal cell carcinoma, which is actually the most common type of cancer.
It is a type of skin cancer. And it's really common. And if you catch it early, it can be okay for you to get. Like, it doesn't normally come back. So, and girl, everybody check those moles.
Everybody check those moles. And girl, she's still out here teaching, and you love that she still teaches.
I do. I love that. I think she was the first lady who kept a job, which is really cool.
I never knew she had a job.
Yeah, she teaches. And when she's still teaching and being the first lady. So yeah, that was cool. I believe she was working at a community college, I think, as a professor. So
well, this will be great because she'll have some PTO to recover.
Hopefully. Well.
Okay, so George Santos, the new congressman from New York. I don't know a lot about him.
Girl, it got worse. It got worse since.
How could it possibly get worse? So he lied on his resume about his qualifications. Yikes. I mean, like, I'm totally with the like fake it till you make it and like figure it out as you go. But there does come a certain point where you have to be like, I have not done X, Y, and Z. I feel like, and that line definitely comes when you're in politics and like in charge of people.
Yeah, definitely.
So it says the family fled the Holocaust.
So that was a lie. So he lied and told people that people in his family fled the Holocaust and were like Holocaust survivors.
Who lies about that? George lies about that.
Does.
So he had employees die in the Pulse nightclub shooting?
Yes. So the
this
messed up.
To say the least. His education and his career.
Wait, I got a new one for you. Okay. So there was a GoFundMe to raise money for veterans and to raise money for like veterans to have service animals. And he stole money from that GoFundMe. Yeah. I told you it's worse.
Is he okay? So the Republicans have said Santos also lied to them in private. They want him out of office and to resign. Is he under investigation? He has to be because all this is coming out.
I don't think he's under investigation yet. The new speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, he said that he's on George Santos' side and said that the people should have the right to vote him out in 2 years if they want him out. But he doesn't think he needs to resign. But like everyone else thinks he needs to resign. So
I think that those, like, you know what? Even if you didn't lie about your qualifications, the fact that you lied about these other things, nobody wants a liar, like a known liar. Like obviously politicians lie, but you're lying about really, really.
Yeah.
It makes me feel a little nauseous.
He doubled down on it and stuff. Reporters have been trying to interview him and ask him stuff, and he's like, I'm not resigning. So, like, the last thing I heard from him, he said he wasn't going to resign, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very bold.
It was so bold. So I'm like, you stole money from veterans and like service dogs, and you said your family fled the Holocaust? Who says that?
I feel
And
sick.
how does that come up in conversation? Also, how do you put that on your resume? Like, was that on his resume? I think they need to release a copy
Of his resume?
his resume.
We want his resume.
We want to see it. We want to see it.
I guess we'll see. I don't know if the people if it's going to stand. I feel like we should be able to decide. We the people.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, because, well, true. And I think if the people want him out, and it seems like everybody, both sides, like everybody's like, okay, yeah, we don't. Well, so like the Republicans up where he is, they all want him out, but it seems like there's a different vibe in like DC. Okay. Like the DC Republicans seem more like, okay, well, let's wait for 2 years and see if he gets voted out of office.
Probably because he didn't lie to them in person. Like these probably people are dealing with him on a consistent basis.
Yeah, exactly. Because I wonder what for one of them to make that comment, I wonder what he said to them in private.
They're like, this man is a liar. Why is he in a public office?
He probably had people crying and shit, like crying over his feet, telling a story about his family, you crying and stuff, and then you find out he was lying.
So that's something I literally, when I read that, I'm like, that's something that I would cry about. Like, that's something that, like, really, I think most people would really find an emotion or, like, to be stirred by that. And, like, you made it up. You're gross.
Yeah.
No. But in other news, the Inflation Reduction, girl, I got questions. The Inflation Reduction Act goes into effect January 1st. Haven't seen it, not with those eggs. Capping the monthly out-of-pocket cost of insulin at $35 for seniors on Medicare.
Yeah.
Is it only affecting the Medicare? Because I definitely don't see it in the eggs or the chicken.
For this specific thing, yes. There was other things in the Inflation Reduction Act, but there was a lot of stuff that got taken out of it too. Dang. So I don't know. Yeah.
So the Inflation Reduction Act does not cover a 16-year-old with diabetes, only for seniors.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So if you're a kid and you have your family's paying for your insulin and stuff like that, this doesn't cover you. So you're still going to pay out of pocket costs. I believe some people are paying between the average is between like $100 to like $300 a month for insulin. Dang. Some people up to $400.
Well, more than half of the diabetes in the U.S., over 21 million people, holy cow, are under age 65, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Yeah. So there's 21 million people under 65
and so they were trying to have it open for everybody to be able for this to cover every single person who uses insulin. And unfortunately, it doesn't now.
Why?
Well, so I believe the Republicans who were voting against the act said that they really wanted the states and like to make rules and changes on this.
I think that they should, because I think what they're doing to people, what pharma is doing to people, is a sin.
Right, and that's why I think maybe the federal government does need to make something broad for everybody, and then the state level they can start making some changes. But people are dying during COVID. A lot of people started rationing their insulin. There was kids that were rationing their insulin because they couldn't afford it, and people died over that, or ended up really, really sick and in the hospital because they were rationing their insulin because they didn't have the money for it.
That's so gross. You can save somebody's life with something so simple.
Right, and they're making money off of it, and so they could sell it for so much cheaper and still make money.
That's why I don't trust big pharma. Jerks. So in August, Republicans blocked a provision in the bill that would have capped the out-of-pocket cost of the drug for everyone in private insurance. But they blocked. Wait, Republicans blocked the bill?
Mm-hmm.
That's a fail. Hardcore. The reason they expressed hope that federal and state measures could be included in legislation down the road. You know what? Sometimes I think people make things a lot more difficult than they need to be. And at the end of the day, this is not difficult.
It's not.
This is not a difficult call to make. This is not like, well, we have to like straight up, you're the worst.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so expensive for people. And you think like kids who need it because they have diabetes, they don't really have jobs or have an income. So they're dependent on now their parents' income to be able to pay for it. And older people and seniors, they normally have fixed incomes or living on Social Security and stuff.
Right.
So like the unless you're dealing with people like 20s, they're, area diabetes and stuff, a lot of these people are dependent on other people to be able to get their medicine and stuff. And that just doesn't seem right.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
That's awful.
It really is. And I thought the reason, like, I get the states need to make changes and stuff. But do you know something that really bothers me that I see is, I don't know if you've seen these where there are memes or posts where people will talk about, oh, Narcan is free. So Narcan is what you use if somebody is going through an opioid overdose. And they're like, Narcan is free, but insulin is expensive, And it's always like, well, Narcan shouldn't be free, but insulin should be free. And I see those and it's like, I feel like you're pitting two helpless people against each other when the issue isn't the addict and their Narcan. It should be the government and like big pharma who's producing these things,
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have an opioid crisis right now. Do people need Narcan who probably can't afford it? Yeah, they do. So should they be getting it? Sure. But also people should be getting insulin. Like it's disgusting that people aren't,
Exactly.
But I think they pit us against each other, like helpless person, helpless addict against like helpless person with diabetes. Like,
yeah,
that's not the people you should be fighting with.
No, it's not. And like, yeah. And if at this point we don't know, like there's no accountability for big pharma, then we in trouble.
And we're the only country that just allows pharmaceutical companies to set the price. Other countries set it and say, this is how much you're going to charge for this.
And now I know that so here's the deal. I know that this can be a slippery slope because it's like, well, if we try to like regulate big pharma, then we're going to have to regulate. No, you don't. Big pharma is one company.
One thing, guys.
They're making money off of us as sick people. And then especially when we had, girl, don't even get me going, but especially when we had the mandates with the vaccines, like you're mandating this, you're making this, you're enforcing this. You're also allowing us to eat food that makes us ill and diabetic. So you should have a little bit of control in the sense that like you're going to allow us to eat poison and horrifying chemicals, which will give us diabetes eventually and cancer.
I send you that FDA video
about
the lady testifying. So I sent.
She was like, no. I'm like, you're gross.
I sent Chelsea a video of the FDA testifying before Congress. I'm not honestly sure what the whole hearing thing was about. But they were asking the FDA questions, like basic questions that you would think like, can you regulate what ingredients they put in here? If they put an ingredient in here that's known to like be a carcinogen or
this was also
or whatever
specified for baby products.
Yes, for baby products. No, her answer was no at everything. No, we can't control that. No, we can't regulate that. And it's like, well, what do you do? Why are you here? If you can't say, because Johnson & Johnson baby products have talcum powder in it, which is a known carcinogen to cause cancer. So other countries don't allow that in their Johnson & Johnson powders. Johnson & Johnson can still sell their products in other countries, but they don't allow that ingredient in there because it's dangerous and can kill people. But in America, put it in.
Just go and throw it on in there.
Throw it in there.
That's so depressing.
It really is. It is. So I'm like, no, what? Go ahead and eat that McDonald's because everything's causing cancer anyway. So what's
and like, wait, hopefully Chelsea, the diabetes doesn't hit until you're 65 or older.
Hold off. Chelsea, did you see that they're going to sell Oh my God. Did you see they're gonna sell the vaccine for like $300 or something like that?
You mean the vaccine that is now under investigation and people are
Mm-hmm.
testifying that people are dropping dead from it? Oh, great. Now it's also $300.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't. No, yeah. So I guess y'all not regulating that and making people get it because I don't know who's paying that much money for that. But I don't even know what to say. There's so much to say about anything, but yeah, there's investigations now about the numbers of deaths as well, about if the numbers were inflated. I saw it briefly on like CNN. It was saying that there is an investigation about the amount of deaths that hospitals were reporting, or like from what, and if they were overinflated. So I guess there's just a whole bunch of stuff, investigations going on right now.
You know what? I feel like my husband was like, he was saying things to me. He's like, you need to like watch what you're posting on Instagram and Facebook, and like you're gonna get me fired and all this stuff. And I was like, do you hear what you're saying? Because I'm posting an opinion. Who am I? I'm nobody. I'm posting an opinion on my private Instagram and Facebook. Get out of here with that.
Right.
And if you know what, and if I do get fired and you get fired, I think that shows us exactly where we're at. Because of an opinion. And it's not like I call it out like his company or my company. I was just like, this is some trash, period.
Right. Well, because the thing is, like, there has to be a line between what you can say before it's like you get fired or whatever. Like, if you're saying this company is doing A, B, and C illegally and like you're making all kinds of wild claims, fine. But if you're saying like, I don't want to get the vaccine,
it's unacceptable that this should be forced. Yeah.
Right.
Like I should not be fired for that. Period.
Right.
And if I am, shows us where we're at.
Right. Chelsea, your service is off a little bit.
My service? Like, is it because it's raining? I don't know. What?
Like your sound is behind your face.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what to do.
It's just like delayed. It's delayed. Like I see a delay.
It's delayed. Oh.
Yeah, your video's lagging.
My video's lagging. Girl.
Oh, no, now it's working. Now it's good.
It's raining here. I don't know if that affects it.
Yep. It was just a little delayed.
Well, but you know what? So I do have some good news because that's super depressing and stressful. But like, in other news, that's a little bit more of a bright spot. All U.S. military veterans in suicidal crisis will be eligible for free care at any VA or private facility. Yay. 9 million are enrolled in the VA and about 9 million are not. 9 million veterans.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is huge. It is. So that means that, so sometimes the issue is, for those of you who don't know, every single person who served in the military doesn't always get benefits for everything. So if you were like dishonorable discharged or got like an other than honorable discharge, sometimes you're not eligible for all of the benefits, and those benefits include using the VA. So if you are in crisis and you know, like, hey, I can't use the VA, like I'm not, I can't really be a patient there, and I don't have money to go to a private place or whatever, you might kind of feel like you're stuck in a situation where you can't get help anywhere. But now if you are in crisis, no matter if you're enrolled to use the VA or not, if you've ever walked in one or not, you can now go in and get help if you're, having thoughts of suicide and stuff. And also you can always dial 988, which is the suicide crisis number. I believe you push 2 for veterans on that number.
And the VA does already provide emergency suicide care, but with this new benefit, veterans will not have to pay any copays, any associated fees for this care, which is incredible. They shouldn't have to, especially since they are so prone to this.
Right. And so, like, if you don't live close to a VA facility, you're able to walk into a hospital or a clinic or something and get treatment and help, and you won't have to come out of pocket for that.
Exactly. If veterans receive care at a private facility, the government will cover all the costs, and the VA will also reimburse veterans for ambulance rides to the hospital, which is another huge, huge benefit to, it's a huge benefit that makes sense.
A lot of money. Yeah.
I know. Okay. When we were in Master's Commission and I was on one of our, what is that called? One of those trips, the humanitarian trips. We were in Denver, and you know how the elevation is so high. So we were sitting, like, at the end of the workday, we were sitting in this where we were staying, and all of a sudden, like, everyone just started to get, like, really short of breath. My nose was gushing blood. So they called 911. The ambulance came. The ambulance guy told me, he said, come sit in here, and I just want to do a check. He was just checking to make sure it was just because of the elevation, all the stuff. So I get back to Master's Commission, where I made $25 every 2 weeks, and he sent me a bill for $700 for sitting in the ambulance. I didn't even go on a ride.
I thought he was telling you to, like, sit in it and don't get a ride because this would be, like, not that much.
No, he told me to sit in it so I wasn't sitting on the curb. And I was like, okay. And then I got out after
on the curb.
$700, and this is in 2006. What would it be now? I can't imagine. So anyway, all that to say, that's great that they cover those costs, because ambulances are expensive, period. This new policy was required by a law passed in 2020 and signed by then President Donald Trump, called the Veterans Comprehensive Prevention Access to Care and Treatment. It's called the Compact Act of 2020.
Yeah. Great bill.
Great bill. Good bill. Oh, we were talking about bills yesterday. Where did you say? So, like, a lot of times they'll pass a bill and people will say, oh, do you agree with this? Do you not? And I always find myself being like, I don't know, because I didn't read the whole thing. So I don't know. I saw, like, snippets or talking points. So where did you say?
I can post it in our show notes.
Okay.
The link to where you can read, like, the whole bill in its entirety. Like, you can see, I mean, and some of them are thousands of pages, but you can see, like, what is in it and all the highlights and different stuff, so that you can find out what's in a bill. Because sometimes you only get talking points and you don't really get the whole of what is in everything. So
right. So then people are out here enraged or feeling some type of way about a bill, and they don't even know the whole, the whole thing of it. This got brought up because I was like, with the don't say gay bill, I was like, do they mean literally, like, you're not allowed to say gay? And Amber was like, you should read the bill. Like, you should, like, read the whole thing from start to finish. And I agree. I should. And then lastly, the governor for Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, is banning.
She used to be the press secretary for President Trump.
Wait, Sarah Huckabee.
She had, like, a sleepy eye.
Oh, yeah. Then he got Kayleigh McEnany. She was fire, dude. Come for her. She was ready for you. But Sarah Huckabee Sanders is banning Latinx. I don't know what that is. Latinx from state documents. Latinx.
So the word Latinx is something that is newer in the last couple of years that people use as kind of a blanket term for people of Latino descent. So it covers people who are male, female, and also, like, non-binary. So I'm assuming that's probably the part that's the issue, I think.
So she's official government docs. She's banning that word from state documents.
Yes.
This is why people think Republicans are racist.
Yes. Because it's like, why?
So Latinx covers people of Latin descent.
Yeah.
As opposed to what? Like, there, like...
So what? There's other... So people would use, like, Latino or Latina for if you're speaking of a male or female. So this one is more inclusive. It kind of is everybody all together. If you're of Latin descent, it covers everybody all together. Oh. And so that's kind of why the term was created. I was trying to think about, like, how it could be hurtful or offensive. I don't really know how it's supposed to be kind of for everybody, includes all people of Latin descent. And I just don't understand why go out of your way to like, you know what, I'm going to ban this word because I don't know. Like, why? What?
I don't know what to say either, because I'm kind of like, there are so many things that are such a disaster in this country right now, and we're taking the time to promote the banning of a word. I don't get it.
And that's exactly kind of how I felt about it. I was like, there's so much other stuff going on, and why would you go out of your way to do this? And to me, especially at a time where it's like, people already question whether Republicans like Latinos or not. And then when you're like, no, I'm going to ban this word from government documents that is specifically an all-encompassing word for one group of people. And it just is, the question is why? Why do that? And kind of isolate this group of people, and then kind of on the back end, I feel like wonder why people think that, oh, why don't people think we like Latino people? Well, you know.
Well, and also too, I don't know what the Latin, what do you call that, percentage, like the percentage of people who are of Latin origin or descent, whatever, are in Arkansas, but I would assume, and I could be wrong, don't quote me, but I would assume it would be greater than other places, because typically, because it's South.
Yeah, I would assume, so like, yeah, I think you would be correct in that. Exactly.
So like specifically, why?
Look, hey, you know, why go out of your way? Why go out of your way? You know, you're supposed to be, you were voted in to serve everybody. And this is kind of a thing that isolates people.
Yeah, the time that I don't get it. It make sense.
We could be dealing with hunger, or, you know, kids in poverty, or, you know, human trafficking through Arkansas, but there's a lot of other stuff. Inflation, you know, we could be getting these egg prices down.
Okay. But we're too busy banning Latinx. Right.
Do you know, somebody told me that Wegmans is now like almost cheaper than like Giant here.
I love Wegmans, but it's too far. But I feel like I go to Giant specifically because it's cheaper and you can get the gas points.
Yeah. But I check Aldi. Aldi's pretty good too.
See, I always forget about Aldi because there's not one close to me, but Aldi's the best.
It is. And they have really organic vegetables and fruits and stuff. And they have a lot of dairy-free stuff, which for those lactose queens out there.
I wish there was an Aldi close to me because I always forget about it. And then I'll see like Bobby approved on TikTok and I'm like, dang it. I wish I went to Aldi.
I wish my Aldi sold wine.
Me too.
So there's like this Aldi wine that everybody talks about all the time and it always sells out really fast, but mine doesn't sell out.
Mine doesn't either. Probably because we live in Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah. True.
Boom.
That's where I get our daughter's advent calendars from.
Oh, Aldi. Girl.
Every year they have them and I go and they always have some type of restriction. You can only buy 2 or whatever.
Huge crowd pleaser, these advent calendars.
It is.
The more you know. They're at Aldi.
So, thank you everyone for joining us on this Thursday morning for a new episode of Politics But Make It Fashion. We will be with you again next week for Wednesday nights. So this one will be uploaded on YouTube as well. So it'll be our second one on YouTube. And chat soon.
Bye.